Sprint race. Good? Bad? Maybe? Indifferent? Let me know down below. Before we go any farther, hit that notification bell, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment down below, and hit the like. Help us with the algorithm. You're probably one of the first ones to ever see this content, so thank you so much. We're going to be here every single race. Also, go ahead and check out our other channel at Frame Drop Gaming for any just casual gameplays that you'd like to watch. But yeah, Silverstone weekend, British Grand Prix. Qualifying sprint race, was it good? I didn't think it was terrible. I think it does give us some interesting insights going into tomorrow's race. So going back, before we really get started on the sprint race or anything, I wanted to talk about kind of how the weekend was set up. Obviously, we have practice 1 on Friday, and then qualifying session, honestly, is probably practice 2, but it's qualifying for the sprint race, which really explains why the rookies like Tsunoda, Schumacher, Mazepin, they really just didn't do very well when it comes to the actual qualifying session, because, I mean, they just haven't had the practice in the cars, and they're still getting used to everything. I know they've had a certain number of races already, but it explains a lot. So they had FP3, and honestly, we had quite an interesting sprint race qualifying. I thought Max's car was going to explode sitting there on the line. Brakes literally on fire, flames coming out of that front left when we went back to the onboard. I thought it was a really great start. Max just jumping off the line, getting past Lewis, but all around, I think it was pretty good. Nice little 30-minute jaunt in the middle of my Saturday when I normally be up early in the morning watching the qualifying, but let's just get into it a little bit. So, rundown of how the actual sprint race worked. It is a 17-lap, 100-kilometer sprint as quick as you can go to get ready for the race on Sunday. First place gets 3 points, second place gets 2 points, third place gets 1 point, and your positioning at the end of the race is where you will start at the race on Sunday. I think it was a really interesting concept, and it kind of actually showed a difference between qualifying and today, seeing how the Red Bull was able to pull away from Mercedes at the end. Max obviously getting the 3 championship points, and then the little parade they did around at the end I thought was really cool. Also, the just random sky cam shots that we had with the cars, just like smooth transitions through the corners and everything, just following it. I thought it was gorgeous, great for the sport. New little decals that they're throwing in there with little onboard stuff like around the cars, really trying to make it look like more of an NFL game when it comes to at least American broadcasting. They had a little box around Alonso when he's going, trying to make it look like the new F1 game. I thought it was really cool. I mean, I like that they're trying new stuff, bringing more fan engagement, and hopefully like more catering to a U.S. market in some instances, because I mean, a lot of purists would like, get that off the screen, we don't need it, but we have really short attention spans here, so it makes sense why they're trying to get more on screen. So beginning of the race, they were talking about how hot it was, and we saw it from the very beginning. Max's brakes were already on fire, and it was just super hot later in the day than a race normally would be, so it was really going to be interesting to see the tires and how they were going to last and how it's going to do for tire strategy going into tomorrow's race. I mean, everybody's mediums were blistering at the end of the race, let alone the softs. The softs just started to fall off there at the end. But ultimately, I think it could lead to a really interesting tire situation come tomorrow's race, depending on how many stops we're going to have. We're going to have a couple 2 stops, how many hard tires there are. I really didn't brush up on the actual mechanics of how it's going to work tomorrow, because typically in a qualifying session in Q2, the tire that you qualify with in Q2 is a tire you start with. So I'm not really sure how that shakes out. I probably should have prepared more, but I digress. First lap underway with absolute madness, with Max just shooting up the inside on Lewis and getting the outside. The Haas is really coming together there, turn 1, and Nikita does his best top impression, and still Mazespins. I do think that he probably could have really put it to Schumacher a little bit more, but I think the spin really took him out of the race. And speaking of going out of the race, Sergio Perez, like, I don't know what happened. He just flipped the throttle there. You could hear it, and as soon as the back end goes out of the car a little bit, you're gone. I mean, I just think he was trying to push, trying to get around, and ultimately I get it, but it put him down. He had to retire from the race. Like, that's ultimately the worst place that you would want to be in, especially if you're Red Bull. And we'll get into the winners and losers of that later. I have a little thing I wanted to talk about that specifically. On the first lap specifically, that was the one thing that I spoke about just a little bit earlier, was the camera work. I thought it was incredible. They had the sky cam going through the middle of the infield, where they just tracking the cars going through the entire area, and just nice pans looking at everything. It was just gorgeous, and I thought it really helped that kind of thing is what I want to see in a broadcast. I mean, I love obviously seeing the wheel-to-wheel racing, but show me the scope. Give me the size of the event. Really sell the American people on how big these events are, really to get it into the US markets. Right before Perez's spin, I thought it was kind of funny. We had an onboard with Lando and Daniel, and they just have ESPN and just the NBA trying to push everything on the McLarens. Both had gigantic Phoenix Suns logos, 3. So 2 on the front and then 1 on top. It just made me laugh, just trying to get as much viewers on the actual NBA finals as they possibly could. To each their own, whatever. I mean, like, you sell more ad space, get more money for the team for upgrades later on. Who cares? I just think it's funny, especially when now that the U.S. market's starting to grow a little bit, they're starting to get more U.S. companies on the cars and everything like that. But I just thought it was interesting that there's an NBA logo just sitting on the McLaren. But that's just a random thing that I saw. And halfway through the sprint race, we had a nice little battle between Alonso and Ricciardo. They took up a majority of the race. I would say half of the little sprint we had going on. They keep on trying to say, don't call it a sprint, call it sprint qualifying. It was a race. It was balls to the walls from the beginning. Like, they were just going for it. But I do think that Ricciardo and Lando did a lot better. Ricciardo's really starting to get a feeling on the car, at least here at this track. So hopefully he can keep it up and see what happens later on in the season. I feel like I keep squinting like this. I have the window behind the phone and it's just so bright. So I'm sorry if I'm just looking at you like I'm an old man. I can't see anything. Alonso just jumping up from the beginning, out of nowhere from the jump, getting 6 positions in half of a lap. I mean, those soft tires really seemed to be an aggressive start, and he was able to hold off at the end, even though Lando and Ricciardo were both able to get around him there. In the later laps, I would say about like 10 or 11 is really when the soft started to really fall off. But it was a bold strategy. It worked. I would say, honestly, one of the winners from today would be Alpine and the positions they gained gambling with the soft tires. Sure, they lost them at the end, but ultimately, Alonso gained 6 positions and then Ocon gained 4, I think. I mean, it was all around a solid gamble, and it worked out for them. The tires were able to last as long as they could, and they were able to hold off everybody behind them. So all in all, I think it was a good strategy. The obvious winner of today is Max coming in first place, and Red Bull, I mean, they're just showing their dominance. So I would give the biggest win today to obviously Red Bull and Max, but also the biggest loss of the day to Red Bull as well and Sergio. I mean, he had to retire on the last lap, so I mean, like, they weren't too worried about going around the Haas's, but you can clearly see that they wanted to bring the car in. They're not too worried about getting through the backfield, but there was something that really happened to the car that caused it to have those issues. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with him starting literally last place in the grid, but it could be interesting. I mean, he's come back before from last place, so I think we'll actually have a good race, especially with Sergio's ability for tire conservation. So we'll see what happens. He'll get in top 10 for sure, I think. We had Russell coming in the top 10. Congratulations, George. You did great. Hopefully there was no issue there with the Sainz collision that took place, which is one of my other losers for the day, was Carlos getting pushed back there. But I saw George was reacting to what happened in front of him, somebody letting off the accelerator, and he was just trying to get out of the way. Sainz coming around the outside, clipped him, knocked him out, and then put him all the way back in the 16th. And Sainz was able to bring it back almost to 10th place. If not, he almost got 10th place. But I think Sainz had a solid performance for all intents and purposes. I just know that's not where he wanted to start. Leclerc, 4th place, really good starting position. Ferrari really seemed to come into their own. I saw that they were doing a lot of testing on Red Bull's rear wing, which I think is going to be interesting to see how they try to manage that. But FIA always just sticking their noses in everything when somebody's doing really well. It is what it is. I mean, obviously, I'm not a governing body or anything, but I just think sometimes you might need to strip things back a little bit. Then again, that just could be me being an American wanting less rules as much as possible. Like, hey, let them do their thing, let them race. Give everybody steroids, give everybody boost as much as they can, give them all the illegal wings, give them the illegal fuel systems, just the steroid Olympics. Everybody on the Olympics just do steroids, see what it is. That'd be an interesting thing. The Super League for Formula One. The other winner of the day, I think McLaren, really getting that solid there in that 5th and 6th position. but I mean, it helps in the Constructors' Championship, especially what happened with Sainz getting pushed back. So hopefully Lando can catch up to Leclerc. The only reason I don't think that he was able to keep up with a Ferrari was because he was held up by Alonso for so long, and then there's just not enough time in a sprint race, to get things back. The one thing I thought was the most interesting was seeing how badly those tires looked, especially the mediums when the three pulled up to the pylons. Max's tires were shot. Lewis's tires were shot and Valtteri's tires were shot, and those were mediums. I think it could have just been a heat factor, so we'll see how everything goes tomorrow, but I really think it could be interesting to see how many pit stops happen. I ultimately thought that today was cool. Like, I don't hate it. I mean, more racing is good for the sport. I really like the more like fan aspect of it. They had like the playing cards when they had the drivers do their special poses or certain poses that really looked like that was an impromptu thing. Like, hey, give me a pose. And then you have Nicholas Latifi just stone face there like, I'm going to do some shit. Okay, Nick. Okay. We'll see. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, thank you for checking out the pit lane. Go ahead and leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I will see you tomorrow for a race recap. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Audio test, straightening this up slightly. Are you working? Okay. Hello. Welcome to the pit lane. We're just going to talk for a second. This is probably going to go at the end of the video. You don't see it.